If you're a fan of Artificion's new world-building series, you may have seen something like this. This is me. I made this. It's also on the website right here. He showed it in a few videos before. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to make something like this for your planet. I will say now that this is based on a written tutorial that I've made a few years back. So this video is just going to be that tutorial word for word. Hopefully less words. So if you're ready, well, let's get started. Just for reference, this is a world that I'm commissioning for another patron on the Artifixian server. First thing you'll need is a land-ocean mask that sort of looks like this. The black is going to be land, ocean is going to be white. In this example, it could be either or. The main thing here is that you can't have an in-between. It's either going to be black or white. And if I zoom in real tight here, you'll see that it's straight up black and white to the pixel. Second thing you'll need is a grayscale height map of your planet. This works fine. If you drew in topography for your planet, that works fine. This person did a DEM, which is basically like copying images of Earth's mountains onto your map. So you get these nice sort of, I guess, more accurate valleys and ridges and stuff like that. You don't need to go that detailed, just as long as it's sort of as detailed as Artificion's. Again, sort of like this. This is about as much detail as you need for this tutorial. Again, just make it black and white. The third thing you'll need is a precipitation map, sort of like this, both summer and winter. If you have summer and winter, just make sure you like overlay both of them, if that makes sort of sense. You'll see in the bottom half of Esri here, it gets some sort of precipitation in the Northern Hemisphere summer. Northern Hemisphere winter, it doesn't get any. The map you'll need for this tutorial will need to show if a region has any sort of precipitation. As long as it gets wet sometime throughout the year, you'll need to map that out. As an alternative, you could have a Köppen climate map that the person I'm doing this for supplied for me. Again, if you don't know how to make a Köppen climate map, you don't really need it. Just as long as you have some sort of indicator as to what regions get any sort of precipitation throughout the year. If you're confused, don't worry, we'll get to why in a second. But for now, these three maps are all you need. One last thing before we start, make sure all your maps are in one folder anywhere. Just as long as they're in one folder, just to keep everything organized. With that out of the way, let's get started. First things first, select your land mask, copy it, paste it 3 times, bam, bam, bam. And then the fourth one just for good measure, bam. We're gonna rename each one of these to plant, snow, ice, and all caps final. What the f did I do? Fourth map, all caps final map. Save the final map for the very last step, but for now all we need to do is open these 3, again the ice, plant, and snow maps that you just made. To explain the workflow here, we're going to be looking at a satellite map of Earth for reference. From here we see that Earth basically only has like 3 things on its land. That's plant, desert, ice. That's it. Maybe at the poles, if you really want to, it sort of grays out the plants. I am a completionist, so I am going to be accounting for that. But if you don't want to do it, then that's fine. It's barely even noticeable from this scale. We're going to be using the plant, ice, and snow maps to account for, again, the plants, the ice, and the snow, I'm just gonna call it. The first map we're gonna work on is our plants. For this, we're gonna need to select our magic wand tool. Oh yeah, I'm using paint.net for this. If you use any sort of other image editing software, use an equivalent to this. I don't know any, so that's all I can say. But paint.net, magic wand, select the black, which is gonna be your continents. Like so. Oh yeah. Make sure it's globally so that all the islands are selected as well. Control I to select the oceans, fill that in with black, Control I again, so we're again selected the continents. The reason why we want to do this is because we want to paint onto the continents, not onto any of the oceans. So we want to make sure that no plants get onto like the oceans, because that wouldn't make sense. This is why I bring up the Köppen climate map, because this is a pretty good indicator of where plants are going to grow. Basically, if it's a desert like in this red here or the orange here, no plants are going to grow. Literally anything else except for like the gray, maybe plants are going to grow there. Basically, if it's not a desert, plants will be there. If all you have is a precipitation map, again, that is fine. You can see again with the example of Esri here, as long as some sort of precipitation occurs throughout the year, plants will grow there, even if there isn't any throughout like another part of the year. This bit right here in the summer isn't suddenly just going to turn into a desert in the winter. Plants will be there. With that in mind, you're going to want to copy whatever map you have to indicate where your plants are going to be onto the plant image file as a separate layer, like that. Oh yeah, two things here. One, make sure the maps you use are all a 2:1 ratio and they're all the exact same size, because we don't want any weird borders like this. We want everything to line up as best as we can. So I'm just gonna fix that. Second of all, I completely messed up. I did not know that pasting images removes any selections that I made previously, so we're gonna have to get our land mask again, copy that, paste it to the bottom layer, and then select our land masses again. Easy fix. Oh yeah, and then Control I, black, Control I again, bam. Make sure you have the black layer selected, because we're gonna be drawing on that, not on the extra layer thing. Again, we're gonna be using the cup and climate map or precipitation map, whatever you have, to tell us where plants are gonna grow. Again, as I said before, if it's not red or orange, plants are gonna grow there. So what I'm gonna do is get a bigger brush, bigger, that's fine enough. Lower the hardness so it's, you know, a softer brush, like that. And then we're just gonna paint wherever the plants are in white. This whole region up here is just gonna be all white, because it's not all desert. Yeah, we're just gonna do this for the rest of the planet. For somewhat higher detailed regions like here and here, I would just lower the brush size and then work with that again. We don't want any hard edges like what's sort of implied here. So if you want to deal with this, make a even smaller brush and then choose a black color, lower the opacity of the black brush, and then again, work with that. So you get this nice, again, smoother transition. Okay, that should be our plant map roughly done. Just double, triple check to make sure that the map we just drew lines up with the map we use as a reference. If all is well, delete the reference layer and save. That is our plant layer done. Now we're going to be using that same sort of method for the snow and ice. For the snow map, same sort of method. Select the... Actually, I could just select the water. Ha! Anyways, select the water, make that black. Control I, so we select the land. Now we can paint on the land again. Wahaha. This time we're going to be looking at the grayish areas, sort of our cup and climate map. It doesn't have to be too exact. So again, if you don't have a cup and climate map, you could just sort of make the poles gray. Like so. That's sufficient enough for me. But again, since we have the cup and climate map, we might as well use it. Ta-da! Again, it doesn't have to be exact or accurate. Just sort of put it near the poles. Save. Okay. Now for the ice, select the ocean again. Make it black again. But keep the ocean selected. We don't want to do Control I again and select the land and then draw on the land. Because we're not drawing on the land, we're drawing on the ice. Because we're drawing the sea ice. Again, if you've been following along with Artifactian's World Builders log, you may already have a map of your sea ice. Feel free to use that as a reference and make your black and white map based on, you know, the map of the sea ice you already made. If you don't have that, go ahead and make that. It should be pretty easy. It's already in the cup and climate map, so I might as well use this. Copy the reference map. Paste. Make it the same resolution, cause god damn it. And then, literally as simple as selecting the ice, which is the lighter blue. Only the ice. Thank you very much. Copy, 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 copy. Delete the reference. Make this all black. All of it. Paste. And then again, make it black and white. Yeah, there we go. If you had the cup and climate map like I did, I highly recommend smoothing the weird edges out like this. Just make sure your brush is at 100% hardness. And then just sort of do that. If ever you're drawing these maps and you're unsure of where your continents are again, just go back to your landmask, copy that, paste it onto a new layer, drag that to the bottom, and then magic wand tool it. Ta-da! But for now, that's sort of all our maps done. Save, okay. Now we could go into Blender. With Blender open, you're gonna wanna make a new file, so just click General. Ta-da. From here, you need to do what you need to do with this cube. From here, you're gonna wanna do Control A, Mesh, and then select UV Sphere. You'll see this drop-down menu here, click the arrow. Radius doesn't matter. What really matters is the number of segments and rings. First note, because our maps are in a 2:1 ratio, make sure the segments and rings are in a 2:1 ratio. Secondly, we're gonna want these pretty high. Not as high as physically possible, just pretty high. Because if these are too low, once we export our final map, these segments here are gonna be really visible at the poles. So we're gonna need to bump these numbers up a bit. I usually go 128/64, but for the tutorial, I'm gonna be a little bougie. Oh my god, no. No. Okay, there we go. Bring down the drop-down menu, right-click the sphere, shade smooth, ba-bam. Let me just edit the GUI here. Yay. We don't need this timeline, so click this clock icon, and then switch to shader editor. Click this checkerboard sphere here, and then select the material that's already preloaded. We're gonna be using this for our planet. Press N to get rid of this. Select the light, delete that. And then these 4 spheres here are gonna determine what our viewport, aka this sort of window here, is gonna look like. We're gonna wanna select this button here, the very last one. And because we deleted our light, these spheres are now gonna be illuminated. So, click here, middle click to drag around, and then scroll in to see this emission. It's currently black because it's not glowing. Just make it glow. Ta-da. It just crashed. It just crashed. Yeah, it just fucking crashed. Cool. Ugh. Bye cube. Bye light. Jesus fuck. I had to restart my entire laptop to prevent Blender from crashing multiple times. So let's see if this works again. Let's try bringing that down to this. Yeah, my laptop's more used to that. One thing you may need to do in order to prevent crashing is select this sort of tiny little icon here with the camera. These are going to be your render settings. I have a very tough relationship with Eevee, so we're not going to be using that. We're going to be using cycles. If you saw a bunch of settings pop up, don't worry, I'll walk you through it. Just remain calm. This render drop-down menu, we're going to get rid of that. We don't need that for now. For both the viewport and render submenus, disable the noise threshold. So uncheck these, uncheck that. Under the render, select the samples to 1. We're gonna need that for later. Under the viewport, select the number of samples to something like super small, like ridiculously smaller than this. So I go with 16, and then select denoise for both of them. Oh my god, save your file as whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna call it tutorial. Click the fancy button here, and yay. Oh yeah, helpful tip, I really don't like this menu here. So what I like to do is go to this magical empty gray area here, right click, and then deselect show tool settings. That'll clear it up just a little. For this next part of the tutorial, I'm gonna need to show you guys how one specific node in Blender works, then we'll get onto it. Shift A, S to search, mix. RGB. Yes, this one. We're gonna need to connect this to the base color and then all the way down here to emission. And just for the tutorial's sake, I'm gonna make these colors radically different. The mix node renders out any sort of specific value here between 0 and 1 based on this fact value. If it's 0, it's gonna spit out the first color, which it is, it's blue. And if it's 1, it's gonna spit out the second color, which is that red. And anything in between, it's gonna spit out something in between. The maps that we made for the ice, plant, and snow are gonna be used as these fact values. By default, Blender's programming recognizes 0 as black, technically, and 1 as white. That's why we made our maps in black and white, to sort of help Blender translate what the hell we're trying to do. I'm really bad at explaining things, but you'll see what I mean once we actually like get our images into Blender, which we're gonna do right now. Control Shift A, S, image texture. You could probably guess where we're going with this. Open an image, find the maps that we made, and then first things first, we're gonna select our land mask. Once we have that selected, drag this color node and plug it into our FAC. Save. As you can see, the black in here is the continents and the white is the oceans. And again, in Blender, black is 0, white is 1. And it did translate that into what we see here. The 0 is the first color here, the 1 is the second color here. Now that we have this linked up, we could pretty much make it whatever color we want. Our color 2 is the ocean, so I'm gonna make that a better blue, like so. And then our color 1 is a land, so I'm gonna go with the crappy little desert color, like that. I know I didn't fully explain that to the best of my ability, but if this looks simple enough to you, that's pretty much it. The bulk of what we need to do in Blender is using our image files and using the mix node to sort of just overlay each layer on top of one another. So we have the base color here, which is our desert. Our next step is the plants, which we're gonna use our plant map for, and then the snow, and then the ice. So let's get to it. Select both the image and mix nodes that we have in here already. Drag them back so we have space. Control D to duplicate what we selected. Now unplug what we have here in the base color and emission nodes. Plug that into our new mix node here, and then plug the new mix mode back into the base color and emission. And then make our second color green. As you can see, that just made our oceans green because we're still using the land mask image. That's obviously not what we want. So select this little file icon here to open a new image and then select our plant. And if it all goes well, ta-da! Look at that! There's our plants. If you're concerned with this big ass desert, don't worry, I am too. I'm opening up the Koppman climate map now just to check. Honestly, it looks fine for the most part, but if you do see an error with your maps in Blender, you can always feel free to edit the map in here and then reload the Blender thing. It'll update. Now we're gonna repeat what we just did, but for the snow and ice. Drag all of these back. Duplicate. Drag you back into here. Drag you there. Drag you there. Again, this is gonna be for the snow. So let's choose a sort of snowy tundra color. File icon, open the image for the snow. Ta freaking da. Again, for the ice, same steps. Drag. Select. Control D. Drag the old one back into here. Drag the new one back into there. Drag the new one back into move. There. File. Open. Ice. Ta-da. And there's our ice. Yay. Save. Now, there is a reason why we did need this detailed topography map. That's because we want to put mountains in our map too. That's going to be a slightly different process, so bear with me, because it might look a little complicated. But firstly, same sort of first steps apply. Drag all these back here. Duplicate. Put you into here for now. And then put that there, put that there. File. Bam. If you did what I just did, it sort of looks okay, but again, this is not what we really want. It could look a lot better than this. I'm gonna set it up and then I'll explain later. So drag the mix node for our mountains all the way right here. Control A, S, math. Oh my god. Drag your math node in between the image. Oh my fucking god. Drag the math node that you just made in between the image and the new mix node. So it should highlight the node or the wire. Just put that there. By default, it should say like add. Click the drop down menu and then select multiply add. Make some space below the math node we just made because we're gonna make another. Drag the color node of your image file, put it into value, and then drag the value node, put it into the color 2 node. This top math node here, we're gonna right click, rename to mask. And then the bottom one, right click, rename to color. No, color. There we go. Final bit of setup before I get to explaining things. For both math nodes, set the multiplier to 1, 1, and then add end to 0, 0. This top math node here is our mask. This basically is telling Blender how much of the mountains we want to show. This multiplier here is telling Blender how smooth or rough our edges want to be. Again, our multiplier here is 1. If I set it to 0, it does that. I can set it to 2 maybe. 5. Yeah, look at that. 10. Hang on, let me look at the other regions. Yeah, look at that. I don't mind that at all. This add-in thing is pretty much for tweaks. So if, let's see. No. Let's keep that at 0. There we go. Again, that's for the top math node, the mask. The second math node, the color, is pretty self-explanatory. That's the color of it. The multiplier is the contrast. Basically how black and white everything is. If I set that to 0, it's gonna be that. If I set it to like 5, ooh, I don't really want that. Again, these aren't hard values that you have to follow along with me exactly. This is just personal preference. So let's just tweak with this and see what we get. Okay, I ended up with values that look like this and mountains that look like this, which I'm pretty happy with. Hang on. Yeah, I like that. That's fine. Talking for this long is not something I should do while I'm sick. By the end of it, you should have something like this. A long chain of repeating bits. And a nice looking planet. However, we are not done yet. As you can see, a lot of these colors are just straight up flat. Again, don't worry. We have things in Blender that'll make this look a lot prettier. First things first, the deserts. We're gonna go all the way to the front of our chain where we have our land mask. Move your land mask image node to the left a little. Control A, S, Musgrave texture. Ta-da! This little height node here, we're gonna wanna drag that out into nothing. This gray space here, don't connect it to anything. A pop-up window should pop up. Search for color ramp. Ta-da! And then on the color ramp, connect the color node to the desert color. Ta-da! The Musgrave texture is good for rocky textures, but first we need to tweak some settings in order to like make it look like rocks and not like this. First things first, this 3D drop-down menu, click that. Change that to 4D. This FBM drop-down menu, click that. Go to, I think, ridged multifractal? Yeah. Bring the detail value all the way up to 15. The dimension value to 0.6 and the gain value to some factor of 10, probably closer to 100. So 100. The scale factor is how big these sort of blobs are. So if I go 1, that'll make them bigger. Like so. And if I go something like 20, that'll make them super teeny like that. I like the smaller ones better. So let's go like 2. This W factor is sort of a randomizer, basically. Any value here, it'll change it up. So if you don't like the way it looks, you could just sort of change the W factor. Again, feel free to tweak these values until you get something whatever you like. That looks fine to me. But it still doesn't look like a desert. And that's where this color ramp comes in. These color nodes here dictate, you know, the color. Select one of the nodes. I'm gonna select this black one first. Again, Carbby desert color. Oh no. Ooh. The other node here in white, I'm gonna make that a sort of deeper reddish color. Yeah. Just like that. Again, feel free to drag these nodes around to make some colors pop out more than others. Just like that. Yeah. If you want to add more colors, that's pretty easy as well. Select this plus icon and it'll make a new node. And you could drag this new node again wherever you want. Make it whatever color you want. I'm gonna make this a gray. Yeah, I don't think that's any noticeable. But, you know. We're gonna do the same sort of detailing steps for the plant and yeah, pretty much everybody except for the mountains. The plants are going to be a little different, so for now we're just going to do the snow and the ice. Go to your land mask, duplicate whatever you have here, and drag it over to your snow. And then put your new color ramp into the color for the snow. Ta-da! Then from here on out, just change the color so it doesn't look like more desert. That looks alright. Oh my god, my blender is like... Slideshow! I wonder if you could go to the beginning of the video and just hear my voice degrade over time. That'd be fun. And then again, feel free to like mess with the scale and the W factors to get it right. Or right. However you like it. Ice is sort of optional, but if you look at satellite photos of Earth, there is some sort of detail in the sea ice. So we might as well just do that. Yeah, something like that. Nothing too noticeable, but it's helpful nonetheless. Last but not least, the plants. I already made space here, but we're gonna do something different. Instead of duplicating what we did for all the other layers, we're gonna do Shift A again, S, noise texture, FAC, color ramp, color. Again, the Musgrave textures we used are good for rocks. Plants obviously aren't rocks, so we're just gonna use a pretty basic noise texture just to get some variation in the plants. Select the 3D drop-down menu, click 40. This roughness value here is again pretty self-explanatory. It's gonna determine how rough or smooth these noise blobs are. 0 is pretty like blobby. 1 is just straight up pure noise. We don't want to go too crazy like this, so let's just keep it at 0.5. Like so. Distortion is pretty fun. It'll distort all the blobs to make them all curvy and wavy and swirly and like woo! Again, we want to keep this pretty low, so I like 0.3-ish. Now all we need to do is, make this plant colored. I'm just gonna unplug that and then get the hex value for this original plant color because I really like that. Paste it into here. Ta freaking da. Paste that here and I'm gonna make this just darker. And that's pretty much it for the planet itself. Save, 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 save it. Save the project file because you're pretty much done. All we need to do is now export the map. Oh my god, look at that. Find some sort of empty space backside here. I like putting it. Control A, S, image texture again. This time we're gonna open, where are you? Here. The final map, because this is going to be our final map. Now for this I'm just going to make a new window, so anywhere you see a border between GUI menus, you're going to want to go to the corner of it until you see this cross shape. Drag a new window out like so, and then this icon here, we're going to want to change that to, where are you, image, there we go. It's called image editor, but we're not gonna edit the image. We're just gonna open the final map so we can see it for ourselves. This is what it looks like now. Again, it should have just been a copy of your landmask map. Save the thing. Now we're gonna export this thing finally. First things first, most important thing. Have this final map image node selected. If it doesn't have a white border like this, it's not selected and it won't work. Click. Simple as that. Please don't forget. This menu here, scroll all the way down until we get to bake. Open that. Bunch of settings here. Again, don't be afraid. I'll walk you through it. Open this drop-down menu to diffuse, I think. Hopefully. Yeah, it's diffuse. I remember. Trust me. This contribution section is gonna determine, what's gonna be baked into our final thing. This indirect and indirect settings refer to light sources, so direct light and then indirect light bouncing off of other objects. But again, since I got rid of the light like ages ago, we're not gonna need this, so just deselect them. That should be it. Have this selected, press bake, and then wait a minute. That's it. Save. This is like the worst timing. My voice is going. I was starting to get better too. Like my cough was gonna go away before I recorded this. I've been recording for like 2 hours at this point. My voice. I'm doing this for you. Again, this is just a waiting game, depending on how powerful your device is. And it will just sort of like pop up out of nowhere. Oh, hey! Fucking hell. Look at that. That's our map. Let me zoom in. Yeah, that looks fine. Well, I will have to like fix that because that's not a desert. But you know, whatever. This was what I was talking about with the segments and rings map when we were making our sphere. So these little triangles here come from the amount of segments and rings our sphere is made of. That's why I wanted to like make these as high as possible, so this sort of jaggedy effect is diminished. But I guess my computer didn't like that, so I hope that's fine with you. But if you're happy with what you have, good. See this image star thing? That star is because this image has technically been modified, but the modifications haven't been saved yet. It's still like our black and white map on our computer. Save. In order to actually save this map, we're gonna want to select the image star thing and then save. And then it should say down here, saved image, yada yada, final map. And there we go. I really wanted to get into the next part of this tutorial, which is like actually making this render out as like a thing in space with clouds and atmosphere and all that, but yeah, honestly that next part shouldn't take too long, but if you want to get a head start, I'll link the text tutorial in the description because yeah, it's basically that. It's like one step. But yeah, thank you for watching. The next part should be out, I don't know. Save.